Hey, welcome to another episode of the Eddie V live show. Just gonna take a sip of water really quickly. It's good to be back with you. Today we are talking about a quick clip from Jordan Peterson, old clip, but was posted again, and I'll get into that, about male dominated society. We're going to talk about that. And also we'll get into, so this is not going to be Saint Therese, but we're going to get into some Saint John of the Cross. Just a quick, I thought, really powerful and concise thought on holiness and the spiritual life. So we'll get into that as well. That should be really quick. The first thing might take a little longer. I haven't thought about these things very deeply. I'm a little bit of it's a weird day today, time crunch today. So we'll see how collected my thoughts are. But I did want to talk about these things and I did want to not skip another episode. So here we are. Welcome to the Eddie V show. I'm going to take one more sip of water. We're going to get into it. Alrighty, that's good stuff. Okay, so I saw this clip today on X. You guys can go check it out, from Elon Musk, now the richest man, the first trillionaire. And he, kind of like a little inception here, but he posted a clip of Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson commented on the clip that Elon Musk posted of him, and that's how I saw it. But this clip was Jordan Peterson in an old interview talking with this lady about male-dominated society, specifically talking about Western society or Western culture. There's a lot of things to say there. I can't stand that Western culture thing. I think it's just Christian culture, because there is no more Western culture. Like, the Greeks and the Romans have been subsumed, have been consumed, have been integrated by the Christians. So there's really no other, there's no, like, I mean, I guess it's coming back a little bit. I honestly think it's exaggerated, the old pagan culture, but it's really just Christian culture. And I think people just use Western culture to kind of hide the fact that the Christians just perfected what the Greeks and the Romans started. But shout out to the Greeks and Romans. They're really cool. But the Christians did it better, just to be honest. Anyways, kind of a little side tangent there. So these discussing with this lady, male dominated society. I also want to say something else too. I think it's hilarious that Elon Musk, because this is how rich people operate. This is how I would operate if I was rich. He buys a social media platform, and then he's like one of the most followed people on the social media platform, and he just posts like his propaganda on there. And I really like it that he just does it straight up. I love that. Whereas, like, he's not even hiding that he's like doing propaganda. It's just his name on his own social media platform. Kind of what Trump does with True Social. I love that stuff, because most rich people are they're mind raping you right now, and you don't even know it. They're doing it in very sneaky, dark ways that you don't even think about, which Elon Musk is probably doing as well, to be honest. But I like the open propaganda. I love that. So I appreciate it, but it is funny to see. She's like, the richest man in the world is just feeding me propaganda right now. But anyway, let's get into the clip. So I thought the clip was very strange. I used to be a huge Jordan Peterson fan, and he said a lot of great things, and then a lot of things I thought were weird. This one was interesting. So he's talking with this woman, and this woman is saying, and it's just a clip, so I don't know the whole context of the interview. It's just like a 3 or 4 minute clip. But the lady is saying, oh, a male dominated society is basically bad. And the reason we know we're in that is because the men own the majority of wealth and productive property, if I could paraphrase her. And Jordan Peterson comes back, and you should just watch the clip for yourself. It's on Elon Musk's profile. And Jordan Peterson comes back and says, no, it's not a male dominated society, Western culture or Western society, because of XYZ reasons. And he's listing all these different reasons. One of them I remember is like the majority of suicides are men, the majority of deaths in war are men, and things like that. And I was sitting there kind of thinking about it, like, I disagree with both of these people about what's really going on. Jordan Peterson seemed a little confused. I wrote down some of the stuff he said. He He said it doesn't mean that Western culture is a male-dominated society patriarchy. He said patriarchy. But if it was to be one, which he seems to say like, oh, it is actually a male-dominated patriarchy, it would be because of competence, because men are more competent in more things that are important for society. And then he talks about how before the current, he seems to be talking about like the free market, but he's like, before the free market of Western culture, relationships were just dominated by power. And I thought that was kind of hilarious. So there's a lot to unpack there. So I disagree with both of them. I disagree with the lady because she says it's bad that we live in a male dominated patriarchy society, whatever you want to call it. And I disagree with Jordan Peterson when he says that we don't. And he seems to go back and forth on it, but he says that we don't live in a male dominated patriarchy. And even if we did, it would be because of competence, which the competence thing, I'm like, maybe, okay, that sounds better. But the first thing he said was, we don't live in that. His media rebuttal to the lady is like, no, we don't. We don't live in a male dominated patriarchy. And my thoughts is just straightforward. I think we do live in a male dominated patriarchy. I would say to a lesser extent than Christian culture has in the past, but we still do. And I would say that's a good thing. And that's just a normal thing. I replied to this tweet. No one cares about it, obviously, because I'm a nobody. I'm a plebe. I don't have any power. No. But I replied to it saying it's just normal for any society to be male dominated. Depending on what you mean by male dominated, but using this lady's interpretation and Jordan Peterson's interpretation that the men are the ones that have all the wealth, that have all the power, that die in the wars, that are the most depressed. I don't know why I just remembered those two. There were other things he said. But yeah, it's that's just a normal society. A normal human society is in those ways male dominated. I think it's a crazy, whatever you want to call it, a cope or just delusion to think you could have a woman dominated society. Does that mean the women have all the power that they're going to war? That has to be the biggest shame to, and I don't think it'll ever happen, but if it ever did happen, that would probably be the biggest shame ever if you had World War V and America sends out its troops and it's like 90% women. That I think there's just a gut reaction, a common sense reaction that most people would have to say that that is wrong or that is severely demented for that to happen. And honestly, I would even go so far to say, and the future would have to either prove me right or prove me wrong, that you can't even have a woman dominated society because of power, because of physical power, because of military and combat prowess. And I think that it can be used for good or for evil, but you have to realize where power truly comes from. But I don't think you could even have a woman dominated society in the sense of wealth, power. I think she said productive property, because the men always have the monopoly on force, which is something that is not me. I'm not the first person to come up with that. If you want, I don't like recommending it because he's always debating on like these very decadent podcasts, like whatever podcast. But if you want to watch someone like really get into male female relations and the reality of power and physical force, you can watch what's his name, Andrew Wilson, on, and he does a lot of stuff on the whatever podcast. If you have trouble with pornography or lust or self abuse, do not watch this stuff because these women are just crazy and scantily dressed. But if you can handle it, he goes into it a lot. And you can just watch like one or two of his debates and you can understand some of what I'm, talking about. I don't know if I'm 100% with him. I'm going to take another sip. But kind of getting off track. But power is real. And I don't even think you could have a woman dominated society in that sense. Because as soon as you had a society, if it ever could come to this, that was woman dominated, a male dominant society would conquer that society. It would conquer the woman dominated society. So I don't even think it is possible to a certain extent. People discuss how technology and advanced weaponry would change that. That has not, and with the current technology we have, that still is not true. Even with like guns, missiles, etc. The ones making those things and the ones that can operate those technological tools better are still men. So maybe in this distant future, you'll have some transhumanist thing that will make it possible for women to have equal power in terms of force than as men. I don't see it happening. I gotta stop drinking water. So that's the thing. So my main hypothesis or main offering here is that we do live in a male dominated society. Every society is male dominated, and that is not a necessarily a bad thing. It's just the thing. It's just the normal thing that happens. And I would argue this is because of the fundamental differences between men and women. If and this is a Catholic channel, so I'm not going to discuss all the possibilities of like how human beings came to be. But the reality is that men are stronger than women, and they are created for combat more than women. Maybe not directly created for combat, but men are more aligned to the art of combat than women. So to a certain extent, men will always have to be the dominant part of society. And then you can also argue about different things. It gets more complex, how men's brains are wired more to objects than to relationships and different things like that that make them more honed to the craft of making things which and doing things which makes them more valuable or makes them more able to gather wealth to themselves in a society. So there's those things too, but I don't understand either their points saying we don't live in a male dominated society because we definitely do, and that is just something that's been true throughout history. Not saying that there haven't been women that have accumulated a lot of wealth, that has happened, but normally men do that, and on the whole, men are going to do that more than women because of how we're made different from each other. And then on the other side, where the woman says it's bad, it's like, no, it's not. It's not of itself bad. Men can abuse women and they can abuse their power, but it's not necessarily bad. Power is just power, and you can use it for evil and you can use it for good. Power is just the ability to do something. And I think we need to get, I don't know if it was like Hitler or World War II or even before that, where something in our minds has screwed up our understanding of power. But yeah, power, I don't, I don't agree with either the right or the left wing of how they view power. So the last thing I wanted to get into was the competence thing, because Jordan Peterson is saying like the men are, if you have a male dominated patriarchy, it's because the men are more competent, which, yes, I can see what he's saying with that. Men just do the things, and women are just wired differently for other things. They do other things a lot better. One of the things that I know women aren't going to like this, but they nurture children better. It's just the fact of the matter than men. This doesn't mean that men couldn't nurture children to a certain degree well, but women are more wired to that, and they do it to a better degree. But the real thing I wanted to talk about was not really the competence thing. What was it? I wanted to talk about how what directs, so you have power, and the reason that Western culture is so much better, Christian culture is so much better than other cultures and societies throughout history and currently, is that the Christian male, obviously the Christian woman as well, but if we're talking about the male dominance thing, in a Christian culture, the power of a man is supposed to be directed by love. So there's going to be power no matter what, but it's going to be what is motivating someone to use their power. And in the Christian society, it's supposed to be love. And that's the thing that's preached. That's the thing that the church protects and proclaims, is that it is for love. It is for love of Jesus Christ. It is the love of God that propels us forward. That's why you get things in Christian culture like chivalry. Chivalry is probably the greatest example of this, because you have men who are obviously stronger than women, who can go to war, that have swords and armor and a huge charger, a huge horse, and they can ride down people. And then you have the church taking that energy and molding it and forming it in the furnace of love for the sake of the women, for the sake of the children, for the orphan, for the widow, for the sake of the society as a whole, for the greater good, for the common good. That is really the crux, the center of Christian culture, is that yes, we acknowledge that there is power. Power can be abused, but look at what can happen if you rightly order power or you rightly aim power. You can have a bunch of men who are just maniacs, just powerful, ready to rock and roll to lay down their life, and you set them on the right path. That's how you get beautiful, beautiful culture. That is what Christian culture is. So I don't like this stuff where it's like we're going to try to get rid of power, or men and women are equal and like they have equal power and women can hit as hard as men and all this crazy stuff. It's like, no, 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 no. Let's just look at the reality. Let's look at what's true and try to understand what makes Christian culture great, which is not like we take all the power from men or we pretend that women have a lot of power in whatever sense you want to talk about that. The real thing is to realize where true power is and to point it in the right direction, to truly form the person that has power correctly. And this goes not only, so I'm using war a lot and like physical violence a lot, but this goes even for wealth. What does the Christian culture do with the wealthy people? It doesn't say like we should take all their wealth from them, which is like kind of the leftist, Marxist, socialist attitude. What the Christian culture says is they want that rich person to practice certain virtues that a poor person can't, or not can't, but like not as magnificently. Where the preachers of the Christian culture will say it's okay to be rich, but use those riches for the good. You could be a hero, you could be a saint with your riches. And that's the difference between this modern, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what the modern thing is. It's like this weird right, left wing, liberal conglomeration monster. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. But that's what the moderns say. Take away the power, or the power isn't real. Or it's all social constructs. But the Christian culture says no, power is real, and we're calling the powerful to do the good. That's what we're calling them towards. And also the Christian culture, and this is a different subject, but the Christian culture acknowledges spiritual power, which the modern culture doesn't. It does actually, but like not in the same sense, but we're not going to talk about that. So I don't know if I said what I wanted to say, but hopefully that's a good beginning point here with the power stuff. I've been talking about that a lot with a lot of people. I feel maybe like an alien because it's just maybe not as talked about as much as what is power? How does power relate to our lives? Power in the church, power in the state, power in politics, power in spiritual matters. But yeah, maybe I'll talk about that a lot more. But I saw that today and I was like, yeah, I have a huge problem with this. I think both of them are wrong. Jordan Peterson, maybe this typical, I don't want to say manosphere, but like pick yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy, right winger kind of, versus like a woman, modernist woman, maybe kind of like a feminist, socialist type of thing, where it's just like men are evil and suck because they oppress women. And it's like they're both wrong. I think they're both wrong. I think they're both wrong. But yeah, I know that was kind of jumbled a little bit, but that's what I got for that. I'll stop there. I do want to cover this John of the Cross thing very quickly because I thought this is so simple, but I think everyone needs to hear this. So St. John of the Cross is talking about in the spiritual life when people they get to the point where they're asking God like to make them holy, to make them a saint. And he talks about how it's really good for people to ask God of that. But then he says people make a huge mistake when they ask God to make them holy, but then they start to encounter whether exterior, like physical sufferings, or interior sufferings from other people or from their situation. And then they go to God and like, why are you doing this to me? Why am I suffering? I just want to be holy. And St. John of the Cross is saying like, that is God is doing that. He is answering your prayer. You want to be holy and now you are suffering. What do you think the path to holiness is? There is no path to holiness without suffering. And that's what St. John of the Cross is like, very simple, straightforward advice to people. Is like, when you've prayed to become holy, to grow in virtue, and you start to suffer, you should see the hand of God in that. You shouldn't see like it's something contrary to the will of God. Because I mean, as our Lord shows, look, and as St. Paul discusses, like through many tribulations will we enter the kingdom of God. And maybe if you wanted to substitute that for our current conversation, it's like, through many tribulations will you become holy. If you just had like the cakiest, the easiest life, and you didn't have any struggles, do you think you would become holier? Do you think you'd ever meet yourself in different situations? Your impatience, your unkindness, your lack of generosity? No, you meet that stuff when the things get hard, when suffering comes to you. That's why some of the greatest saints suffered a lot. You know, you think of some of the great saints even of the last couple centuries. Padre Pio, you know, he's got the stigmata. He's getting persecuted by the very church that he loves. And that just, if he remains in God's will and God's love, that will just make him holier. That will just increase his ability to become holier. So very simple, but very profound, I think, and something that maybe a lot of us are not aware of or don't really think about on a regular basis. But I'll stop there. That's what I got today. Those two topics. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, disagreements. Comment on the video, please. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends and your family. That would be really cool. That would be cool. And yeah, that's it. So, and this is Thursday. I might do one of the weekend just for fun, but we'll see. But until then, God bless you. God keep you. And I will see you on the next show. Goodbye.